If you have a health or fitness
I'm not giving No, I'm not giving No, I'm not giving I'm not giving I'm not giving No, I'm not giving No, I'm not giving I'm not giving Y pides solo eres my kind Lo quieres pa' mirar el time Por si algún día ya no hay Ey, no bebes más o hay Copa bifitter con limón no quieres tanquerar Que tío no hay mala desaprovecháis Y aunque yo diera la ocasión así la aprovecháis Le llega heavy hoy no va a portarme bien Toca pelle y me vacila 10 de 100 Ahora es pussy retrega constantemente She's smoking glass, casi carats Mi nombre por tu ciudad Baby sigue que lo escuche el vecino atrás Let's hop in cash Y si preguntan la que hay She want it, I got it, y acabo de fixar Let's go to class, la partidita al solitario You're todo around, yeah Eso que tiene duplicado, yeah Muévemelo para el otro lado, deja que se amontone Tranquilo, suéltame los botones Los mamas, ya me dicen moscones Todas las posiciones Oh no, otro cero Ruge bien si lo meto un aguacero BBM, very big monetero Quieren dinero, fundiendo cobre en la The $20. Through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll
What is up, fam? How is everyone doing? Hope everyone's good. All right, tonight we got a fun topic. We gotta talk more about dating, just because it looked like I said. I promised myself I would look more at like the analytics and stuff behind like what I post, as well as the different topics of my live streams and stuff. And based off of just like views and kind of what people want, obviously, kind of very hot topic right now. Honestly, anything relating like dating and women and stuff like that, and how to get the girls, like my guy Rich Cooper says, is the hot topic at the moment. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Man, honestly, I need a beard trim. My beard is looking pretty scruffy at the moment. I need to clean it up a little bit. All right, not too much as far as like updates and announcements, so we can go ahead and hop right into it. Got to catch a little bit of the Warriors game later on. Yeah, got some business going on with that. But let's go ahead and hop into it. Playing no games tonight. All right. If anyone has a question, just go ahead and leave it to me in the chat. Hold on. Make sure my stream health is good. Looks like it's having a little bit of issues. Let me go ahead and refresh this real quick. All right. For some reason, it's having a little bit of issue. Hopefully, I believe my Rumble. So, like I said, I'm both YouTube and Rumble. So, Rumble should be working pretty well. YouTube, not sure exactly what the issue is, but let's go ahead and hop into it. All right. So, tonight's topic: simp to pimp, break free from simping and date your dream woman. Obviously, I'm gonna first tackle kind of the main point of, or the main section of this video is going to be like tackling the simp part, because honestly, I'd say that's honestly more than half the battle, just because typically as guys, because I've gone through this myself, you grow up and your mom and your dad, your grandparents and your teachers always tell you like, all right, do this, do that. This will be treat the girls really nice and stuff like that. And not saying that's like necessarily a bad thing, but it programs our minds on like, all right, if I'm just generally nice to a woman, like I will eventually get a woman, especially like the one I want. And that is not necessarily true. There's lots of steps in between there that you need to accomplish as a guy in order to kind of get the caliber of woman that you're wanting. And for most dudes, it's definitely higher caliber for sure. And we're living in a day of age where social media has changed the face of dating. Honestly, a little bit for the worse, but just like that's just kind of how it is, and we have to adapt. Just like business, technology came out, the internet came out, brick and mortar stuff is going away, online businesses are booming, and you just kind of have to change with the times. Being able to adapt, adaptability is one of the best skills that you can have in just in general in anything. It's going to help you in business, your family life, and your dating life, and your relationships with just your friends and your family. Being able to adapt is a very core skill that you need to have in order to just be successful in life in general. But we'll go ahead and all right. First of all, I actually had this one of my men's value lives, but definition of a simp. It's like there's this simple definition of a simp, which broken down very nicely by yours truly, Tristan Tate, is being a simp is the unequal exchange of value, particularly in a romantic relationship. And then there's a difference between being a gentleman versus being a simp. Being a simp is that unequal exchange and you hoping for there to be more reciprocated in a romantic relationship. Being just a gentleman is just doing nice things for someone without really expecting anything in return. So that's kind of the clear, stark difference between being a gentleman and a simp. Because, for example, I can hold open a door for a woman that I don't even know, just being a gentleman, or open her car door, first date, or whatever, it's being a gentleman. But if I have the mindset of, hey, if I do this plus I do that, I give her flowers and all this stuff, I'm gonna get some at the end of the night. That's being a simp, and eventually you're not getting it, thus being a simp. In equal exchange of value. So that's the difference between a gentleman and a simp. So kind of, I just wanted to rule that out very quickly, just because, especially I can see from the women's side, obviously guys doing that stuff for them, and a lot of women nowadays expect that, which I don't necessarily think is like a good thing or a bad thing or necessarily unrealistic expectations. But I had to make that clear difference because I can already tell if I didn't make that clear difference, women would be like, "Oh, but you're not telling guys to do this stuff and just treat us badly and stuff like that." No, not at all. It's just like there has to be some sort of equal exchange. So there's kind of laying the ground rules here. All right, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of my personal life and kind of just like, because honestly, I think most guys, there's guys that typically just like are kind of like born like very, not only very extroverted itself, but very innate. It's very innate in them, either that or their dads kind of understood like how interactions with opposite sex like truly work in the world versus like what we're taught in school and what our parents from 20 to 30 years ago taught us, which was essentially, I guess, breaking that down. I'm very similar to most guys out there where you grow up as a kid and you're like, all right, be nice to girls. Girls are kind of, you put them up on a pedestal. Anytime you do, they need help or anything, they drop everything to help them. Or hold the doors open for them. Carry stuff for them if they need it. And if there's something difficult in front of them, then take the lead and go ahead and take care of it for them. And eventually, if you do that enough times, then a girl will, a girl that you like, eventually you doing those actions will catch your eye, and that will cause a spark of attraction between the two of you. And you start dating and get married and have kids and happily ever after. Fortunately, that's not the case nowadays. There are many steps in between that in order to kind of break that threshold, because doing that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing, but what that's probably going to land you, if the girl doesn't already see you as an attractive option, is the friend zone. So you do a lot of nice things for her. You give her a lot of attention. You're most likely going to get put in the friend zone unless you're a certain level of attractiveness. And for honestly, for a lot of girls nowadays, it's like if you're not an 8 out of 10 or above in attractiveness level to them, then it's like you're not really an option. You're immediately put in the friend zone. Obviously, I'm speaking generalities. Every person's different, but like I say with all of my lives, I see that people that kind of navigate their life according to generalities rather than exceptions tend to be more successful in life and navigating life in general. So that's typically what happens. You're nice to the girl, you put them on a pedestal, you do everything nice for them, you wash the dishes for them, you take the trash out, you do all these nice things for them, you hold the door open for them, and then you ask them on a date, and you kind of expect them to say yes, and they're not really attracted to you. You're not an 8 a level of attractiveness or above, and they're like, I see you as a good friend. You're like a brother to me. I've gotten that many times kind of before. I've kind of went through my own transformation, my own self improvement journey. For example, there's like freshman year. This girl's married already. I'm not going to name any names, but like I was really attracted to her, and I was just kind of trying to like hang out. We're hanging out all the time. Like it was just me and like all her girlfriends and stuff like that. Like really good friends, and I was like, hey, like I'm kind of attracted to her. And then kept on hanging out with them, kept on doing stuff with them, which generally we all had fun and a good time, doing nice things for her. And then it got to the point where I was like about to ask her out, and then eventually she kind of shot me down. She's like, "Hey, I see you. I love you as a brother," type of thing. And just like, I just it was tough hearing that. And there were several other times after that as well. And that was, like I said, during my freshman year of college, which is kind of like when I was actually starting to date a little bit more. Of course, I dated in high school, but like I mentioned multiple times, I was just focusing on literally school and sports at that time. But didn't have sports, and then I was about to go on a mission, so dating wasn't super serious, but this is a good opportunity for me. It's like, all right, I didn't have a ton of dating experience in high school. This year before I go on my mission, where I can't really interact with women for 2 years romantically. Let me see what I can get. Like, let me see what I can experience in that time. Plus, it's like college. That's kind of what college is meant for, especially your first couple years of college. So that was that experience, and then there was another experience as well. This girl's also married. It's you see a trend here. Not all the girls that I dated or had a thing with are married, but there are a good amount of them. Just being from or being in Utah and the nature of everything. If you know, you know. But same thing with this girl. We're hanging out and stuff, and things were going well. And then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna ask this girl out. And this is after like weeks and weeks, and just kind of like friends with her, and it's kind of the same thing. Eventually, she's kind of like low key kind of asked her out, and she was like, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks," type of a thing. Like, see you as a friend type of thing. And again, it shot me down. I was just like, man, like I'm kind of doing everything by the book, what I was told to do. It's just like I'm interested in this girl, and like I'm not I'm not 10 out of 10 in attractiveness, but I'm definitely pretty decently good looking. There are several other girls that I'm not necessarily interested in that are interested in me and going out with me and stuff like that. And this was kind of the period of my time when I was starting to go through that self improvement journey a little bit. Definitely diversifying my options, talking to like pick up and stuff like that, getting girls' numbers with my friends. So we did basically all freshman year. But I kind of got focused on these like singular girls one at a time, and then that this happened to me a third time as well. And at that point, I was just like about to go on my mission. I was like, all right, like whatever. Like I had some fun, But the girls I was like really shooting after didn't work out, and I didn't know what was wrong. I was like I said, I'm kind of doing everything by the book. I'm being nice to them and doing fun stuff and getting to know them. They're getting to know me, and but just like I'm giving them all this attention and trying to text them and stuff like that, and it's not panning out for me. So I was like, okay. Well, I went on my mission, kind of forgot about all that, and I came back on my mission, started having a lot more success with women. I think the mission, I say this all the time, you go out for 2 years, you talk to random people, especially in a different language, you learn social skills, like to a certain point. So I definitely think I mastered at least talking to random people for sure. And granted, my freshman year did help me with that, but being able to hold a conversation, talk about different stuff. Like I always, whenever girls are in an awkward situation, I always break the ice by saying, "Don't worry, I thrive in awkward situations," and it just immediately breaks the ice, and they laugh, and that's like kind of like my joke whenever things get a little bit awkward. Because honestly, I don't really get awkward very often, just from the experiences I've had and being in countless hundreds of awkward social situations as a missionary. So I came back and I started getting the hang of it a little bit, started to see a little bit more success, but I still kept on kind of going into the same pitfalls, like focusing after this one girl, doing all the things. And granted, I'm a little bit more self improved, so kind of know somewhat knew what I wanted to do for like a career and like a career and like what I wanted to do in life, pursue. I actually ended up changing like a year after, but kind of the similar situation. I got a little bit more success with women, but then there was this girl in my class. Again, she's married, but she was in my Japanese class. She was very attractive. She was half Japanese, and that time I came back from my mission, and this was before I kind of got you already know, a Japanese girlfriend after that. But ironically, it was that same class. I ended up dating my TA, the 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 student that was teaching that class. But sorry, I digress. But there's this really cute girl. She's half Japanese. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. I'm half Japanese. She's half Japanese. She's already kind of like knows the language. We're in the same level. And I was like, this girl's super cute. Like, got to know her and stuff. And that went well. Hung out a little bit. Went to a couple football games and stuff. Got to know her friends a little bit. And kind of got to the point where, honestly, did we even go? No, we did go on one date. So we went on one date. I thought it went pretty well. Not obviously not the best date in the world, but I think it went decently well. And then I think it was the second date we went on. I texted her or something, or at that point I was like kind of calling girls. Where honestly, at the end of the day, if you prefer calling girls or whatever, or texting girls, whatever, like it's kind of up to you. Traditionally, like phone call, I think is really awesome. But I also have gotten some feedback from women as well. Just kind of like it's cool, but like it's kind of like 50-50 at this point. Before, like say 10 years ago, obviously to call a girl, but nowadays it's definitely very different. Obviously, I'd say in person is honestly the best versus phone and over text. I've one of my friends has very bad kind of stories with trying to call the girl and texting the girl like, "Hey, can I call you?" type of thing. I'm like, dude, just call him, call her. Anyway, that's a different story for a different day. But sorry, going back to my story. So this was like going on the second date, and I called her. I think the first date, or might have been in person. I can't really remember. But called her for the second date, like, "Hey, want to go out with you again? I kind of like our vibes." And granted, I'm kind of the very attached personality type, so at that time I didn't really understand that, so I was getting attached to her very quickly with very limited interactions. Granted, we had a decent amount, but kind of the second date, like second date is not enough to kind of make it exclusive type of thing. And granted, I wasn't trying to make it exclusive, but I was definitely moving towards that way. I was moving very fast, at least for myself. And that's when she dropped the bomb. Hey, really liked you. You're like a brother to me, type of thing. I'm like, dang, like why does this keep on happening to me? And I just kind of got heartbroken. Then eventually I found this other girl, and through my series of 3 to 4 years later, dating multiple girls, and kind of, to be honest, and no offense to the girls I was dating, but I kind of like upped my game a little bit, and on my journey to self improvement, kind of understanding a lot more the inner workings of like relationships with women and kind of what works and what doesn't. I was able to kind of like get like I don't want to say necessarily higher quality, so let's just put it at this: I got more and more attractive women I was dating and going on dates with. So I was just like, hey, I'm getting onto something. And these were I'm going to talk about the things I used to do, kind of in that beginning stage, my freshman year, as well as kind of the first year getting back from my mission before I was dating that first girl, and then the things I've done since that have dramatically increased my chances. And granted, I'm at this point like I am a pretty picky person. Granted, like I said, I kind of understand my attachment. Uh, what's it called? attachment type a little bit more. So I definitely try to keep that in balance for sure. But results are like night and day when I was a freshman in college versus like now. So things I used to do after my extensive background of dating, which I know people love hearing that on the internet, but I think it's helpful because I think I can relate with a lot of guys and a lot of guys can relate with me just because we tend to go through the same stuff. Things I used to do. So this is just kind of like a blanket list. I might go into some in detail a little bit, maybe some stories behind each one. Probably not every single one, maybe a couple, but let's go ahead and hop into it. Things I used to do, aka kind of my simp area, what I was doing. I was definitely over texting girls. Over texting girls, and I can you can kind of put this in the same boat as just constantly giving them attention. Like anytime they texted me back, I immediately texted back. Even if I was doing something, I was in class, I was working on something, like I'd be like, oh, and I would constantly have that thought. And trust me, all you guys, you've been through it. We've all been through it. But that moment you send the text to her and you're like, all right, you're immediately kind of waiting for like, all right, when is she going to text me back? And constantly thinking about, she hasn't texted me back. She hasn't texted me back. It's been 30 minutes. It's been an hour. It's been 3 hours. It's been a full 24 hours. Why hasn't she texted back? We've all been there. And honestly, girls, they probably think about this as well. Some girls probably think about this when I'm texting them. But I'm busy. I'm doing stuff. Don't worry. I was definitely over texting, and I had that constant thought in my mind. Is like, when is she gonna text back? And immediately as she texts back, it's like, awesome. She's online essentially, and it's like I can send her a text real quick, and then maybe we can like have a back and forth conversation. Sometimes it was like that. She would respond immediately back, and then we would text immediately back and forth 4 or 5 times. But a lot of times, I was the one that was like last sending that text, and I would be waiting for her to send the text versus vice versa, which typically, depending on the situation, but it's definitely more the opposite nowadays. But these are things I used to do. All right, another thing I used to do was unnecessary gifts. Now, I did this with the girl I was dating for a while, um, and I believe it was like their second or third date, maybe like yeah, third or fourth date. And I don't even know if they were calling dates. We're kind of like hanging out every other day, if not every day. But I just had this like sudden urge. I'm like, I want to give her flowers because that's what that's what a good guy does. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with getting flowers and stuff, but we weren't necessarily in an exclusive relationship yet, so I don't think there was necessarily a need or it wasn't the right move. Essentially, it's all about moves, and it's like chess. Where's the leverage? Where's not the leverage? I know it might be kind of people might think it's bad saying this, but you want to have the leverage in your relationships. Now, obviously, if you're in a committed relationship or you're married, like I do think you have to. I'll phrase it like this: you have to make sure you keep your attraction to one another. Leverage per se, some might say it's leverage, some might say it's not. I'm not going to necessarily dive deep into that, but definitely when you're outside of like a married, committed relationship, like you got to have some leverage in the relationship, or you should strive for that. Now, do you have to have like all the leverage in the world? No, but do you have to have definitely some? Yes, I do think so. Anyway, I was doing unnecessary gifts. So the girl gave her flowers like the third or fourth date or whatever, like, and I don't really remember her like reaction to it. I think she was like, "Oh, awesome, thank you," and stuff like that. But now, come to think about it in the back of my mind, and she's like, "This guy's already getting me flowers." It's like this guy's like catching on real quick, type of thing. And at the end of the day, like she ended up being, well, I ended up being kind of a rebound for her, but we were actually together for a decent amount of time. So I guess it was a long rebound. Uh, Unnecessary gifts. And then this is also the same girl. And I also tend to do this. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I like to spend money on the girls I'm hanging out with just because you're attractive. Like, I have money as a resource. And that's one of the things I tend to do. Obviously, I definitely limit it more. Well, granted, I have more money now. So, anyway, but that's why, like, this is one of my giving languages is just like gifts or like experiences or spending money. It doesn't necessarily like I'm not giving them money per se, but it's just like I'll spend good money on a fun activity or a nice date or a good present for her. So Christmas rolled around, or it was her birthday actually, and I got her AirPods because she was still wearing those like wired Apple earphones. So I was like, I was doing sales at the time. I was making good money, so I was like, oh, it's like what's $200, you know? Like I'll do something nice for her. We were kind of long distance at that point, but I was doing this for this girl, and then came back after the summer. I kind of wanted to continue things, but I also kind of wanted to see other girls. And she's like, "Yeah, you're kind of a rebound type of thing." And I'm like, "Okay, well, it is what it is." And I actually almost went back to that girl, but glad I did. Just say that. But I was doing unnecessary gifts, and honestly, that could probably have led up to the relationship. It was just like, oh, this guy's like kind of very into me, and I'm maybe not like as into him as he's into me, type of thing. That's where you gotta have the leverage. So unnecessary gifts. I was doing that a lot. Very simp behavior, to be honest. Uh, because I wasn't really in a committed relationship with her at that point. And then, all right, next one. Okay with being in the friend zone. Now, this is a big one, and I know a lot of you guys. Trust me, like I said, we've all been there, but we become friends with a lot of these girls, and she's like, oh, we're spending time with them, and I'm convinced this is kind of my theory. I've talked about it with several other women as well, and I think they kind of get my side of it. But whenever we tend to hang out with women, it can tend to be very emotional language and emotional subjects and topics that you're talking about, especially when you're one on one with them at times. So men don't really have a lot of that emotional experience, them I'd say emotional tension with guys, just because very pragmatic, we're very simple dudes, we're hanging out with each other, we're either playing sports, we're watching sports, we're eating food, cooking some meat on the grill, we're doing some activity or whatever, just straight like testosterone pumping between our veins. Whereas when we spend time with women, it's more like emotional, it's more like feelings and stuff like that. Obviously, you can do sports or whatever with women too, but that's kind of like why guys hang out with women, because you kind of get that emotional side of emotional feedback that you don't really get with guys. Girls get it with each other all the time. So to them, you're just talking, but to a guy who doesn't get a lot of that, especially from guys or not, isn't really used to that from previous interactions with women, you get attached to that girl and you start getting feelings for that girl. When the girl is just like not catching feelings at all, because that type of emotional talk, emotional energy transferring between people is normal to her. She's doing it with all her girlfriends. So that's my theory. That's why guys get attached when they're hanging out with girls a lot. So this happens a lot. Girl gets or guy gets put in the friend zone and is okay with being put in the friend zone because he thinks he's getting this emotional validation. It's like, hey, we're starting to talk about these topics. Think she might be trying like liking me type of a thing, when it's not like that at all. That's why I tend to say that guys and girls can't generally be friends. Doesn't mean you can't hang out in groups. Like I'm all for that. Hang out with groups of girls all the time, but like one on one stuff, like you can't. It won't work. The guy's always going to be interested in the girl. Sometimes the girl's interested in the guy, but it's typically the guy that's interested in the girl. Wants to take it more than friends. But that's one thing I did a lot of my relationships before. So my freshman year, I was friends with them at first, and typically, I mean, honestly, that's a great place to just start a relationship. But you get stuck in the friend zone, and then when you're stuck in the friend zone, you're okay with being in the friend zone because you have that false hope of getting out of the friend zone, which, to be honest, isn't going to happen. So it's another mistake I made. All right, another one: trying to impress the girl. Now, we all do this naturally. It's just part of our genetics and kind of our biological makeup. This, like, you look at throughout evolutionary psychology within different animals, like peacocks, they peacock their feathers in order to attract the females, and other animals will fight other males in order to get the attention of the females, or they'll puff themselves up, type of a thing. They try to show off and impress. I think doing an aspect of that just naturally, I think is fine, but going out of your way to impress or trying to be someone you're not really. So, for example, you act like you're a big shot. Maybe you're like making like a ton of money. You think you're making, or you're not making that much money, and you're like, oh, it was buying these expensive dinners and stuff, buying her gifts, uh, showing off to her type of a thing. Like, hey, check out this, check out that. Um, that like that's kind of like simpish behavior because it's like, hey, look at me, all the stuff I'm doing. A lot of sales guys kind of get into this, especially because they're making a lot of money. They're like, hey, I'm gonna get the girl by showing off my money type of thing. Honestly, it does attract certain types of girls, but it's typically the girls that you don't want, at least long term. So trying to impress too much. Like I said, the example I gave was money, but it doesn't have to just be money. It can be like things you're into, especially if a girl is really into a certain subject. For example, like certain type of music, and you're like, oh, I love that music too. When in reality, you don't really like that music, and it's just like you're just trying to impress the girl to kind of further things along in the relationship. And it's ingenuine and it's simpish behavior. In the end, it's not going to work out for you. All right. Another thing, guys do this all the time, especially when a guy is intimidated by a woman who's very attractive and maybe is a little bit out of your league to an extent, is self-deprecation. So guys will do this all the time. Be like, for example, you comment on a girl, compliment them, hey, you look gorgeous, like I like the outfit that you brought out. She's like, oh, you look nice yourself. And you're like, nah, like this old thing or whatever. Or you're playing down on yourself, for example, if you're going like bowling or whatever, you're playing pool, and you're just like deprecating yourself. You like you throw it in the gutter and you're like, oh yeah, I suck. Like I'm not very good, and just like just any self deprecation in general is just not a good thing. It just exudes. It reeks of no confidence, and it won't work out for you with that girl in the long run, or even the short run, I'd say. So just be careful with self-deprecation. All guys do it just because it's typically a coping mechanism for being like, hey, I'm intimidated by you to an extent. So I'm gonna play down myself in order to kind of get you to laugh, and maybe you'll like me if I can get you to laugh and kind of put myself down. All right, another one, always deferring to the woman. So and this kind of is reflected in the texting situation, which it's I drop everything when she responds. Anything that I'm doing, if I'm in the middle of a workout, from the middle of a meeting or whatever, I'm gonna text her real back because she texted me. Like, don't defer to her all the time, even when she's like, "Hey, maybe we should go do this or this." And if it's something that you really don't want to do, then it's just like you can acknowledge her, like, "Thanks for bringing that up." Like, I'm sure that's fun, but it's like I'm not really into that, so maybe let's just do this instead. So don't always just defer to the woman because you want to impress her or you want to agree with her. Don't always agree with her either. This brings to another point is always agreeing with her opinions. It's not a good look for you to always agree with her opinions, especially if you don't agree with them. For example, go on a girl date with a girl that's very progressive or very liberal, very on the left, then don't pretend that you're on the left in order to impress her and you think that you're going to get higher marks because you are agreeing with her or her opinions. To be honest, like even if you're like the total opposite, she probably is going to respect you a lot more. And honestly, if there's big differences in that, odds are it's probably not going to work out. But there's definitely a way better chance it will work out if you're just like, hey, obviously those are two extremes. Two extremes probably aren't going to work out, but it's somewhere in the middle. If you're like slightly right leaning, she's slightly left leaning, it's like, hey, I mean, I get it. You agree with this, X, Y, Z. I actually think the contrary. I think of ABC because of EFG reasons. She'll respect you a lot more, and honestly, that brings up good conversations to talk about, and that kind of reflects your intelligence and your ability to disagree, agree to disagree. Like, obviously, no one likes anyone who's like disagrees on every single little point and tries to argue all the time. But standing up for yourself, and this kind of goes into the same point of self-deprecation. It's like don't self-deprecate your beliefs, and it's very attractive for someone who stands up for their beliefs and kind of can give reasons behind their beliefs as well and why they stand up to them. So don't always agreeing with her opinion. especially if you actually differ in that opinion. That is things I used to do as well. All right, another thing. I know we're getting kind of long-winded here, but I'm almost done. Only a couple more points. No boundaries, so not setting boundaries on anything, whether it be like her flaking on dates or her changing the date all the time, or her. I'd say it's mainly just flaking on dates is a big one, and this is also a kind of goes into the next one. It's rewarding bad behavior. Honestly, if she flakes on a date, like unless you're like kind of know her a little bit more, if it's just a rando girl and she flakes on a date with you, it's like I kind of honestly, I still kind of make this mistake. So there's this girl last time, so 2 times ago when I was in Utah, we actually matched on Hinge or something, and I was like, "Hey, I'm in Utah. Let's go do something." It was like for some holiday, Memorial Day, whatever, and she was down. You're like, "Okay, cool." And I like messaged her that morning. It's like, "Hey, you still down?" She didn't end up like messaging me till like 7 p.m. And she's like, "Hey, you still down to do something tonight?" And I'm like, "Sorry, like I'm back at my sister's house. I'm leaving for the airport tomorrow morning. Like too late type of a thing." And honestly, I should have just left it at that, but I was just like, had a couple different options this last time I was in Utah. I was like, hey, what the heck? Like, I don't really care if it works out. Honestly, if like we don't go on a date, I'd actually be happier. But my stupid self, I was like, all right, hey, you want to meet up? Of course, she said, yeah, let's do it. I messaged her again, and she just like doesn't respond. I'm like, I knew this was gonna happen. I don't know why I was thinking otherwise. But clear example right there. I still make that mistake. Don't get me wrong, but if it's a rando girl that you've like never met before, especially from like a dating app, and she flakes on you the first date, it's like, and she doesn't offer to set up the next date or offers another time or anything like that, then don't bother. Just set boundaries right there. Honestly, maybe don't even respond after that. But even if she, maybe she flakes a couple times or flakes once, it's like, hey, I actually can't make it for XYZ reason, whatever. Let's schedule for like next week, Tuesday night at this time. And you're like, okay, like whatever, let's do that. You're paying this time. Honestly, I actually I throw that out uh, every once in a while, and just because it's kind of like sets the boundaries. It's like, hey, you flaked on me. You got the tab this time. Of course, like I'm actually like if that actually happens, I'm not gonna. I'll go and then pay afterwards. But it's just like a fun little banter thing and just see how she responds, type of thing. And like I said, she'll honestly respect you for that. It's like, hey, I apologize for flaking the last time. Sure, I'll pay for like whatever meal or drinks or like whatever. And then you actually pay, and then she actually respects you even more. But if she flakes on you that second time that she rescheduled or tried to reschedule or whatever, then it's like, hey, and she maybe tries to reschedule again. Like, appreciate your rescheduling. I don't think this is gonna really work out with you flaking all the time. Best of luck to you, and just kind of leave that at that. If you respond at all, so set boundaries, and girls will respect you for that. And that way, when the girls that do come around that are actually interested in you, they'll be like, hey, this guy's got something going for him, and he has boundaries. Like honestly, women tend to like something that they can't really get too easily. So don't give them too much attention. Set boundaries with them. They'll be like, oh wow, that's it's kind of impressive. So no boundaries, and also rewarding bad behavior. They flake on you, giving them another chance, type of thing. Especially if it's a rando, um, and all that thing. Or if they do something you don't like, not saying anything and letting it slide, type of thing. I've been doing this a lot more. It's like if a girl does something I don't like, it's like, hey, I'll let them know. It's like, hey, I don't really appreciate that. Really, like, obviously, speak to them as adults. Like, don't speak to them like a little kid. Like, don't do that. Just like, hey, you did this. I don't really appreciate that. I think it's kind of disrespectful. So moving forward, like, is that okay? It's like just kind of setting the boundaries, setting the rules, and not rewarding the bad behavior. Maybe that means like kind of not giving them attention for a little bit until they like, hey, I apologize. Yeah, moving forward. Yeah, I'll respect your whatever you don't like or whatever. And then lastly, I'll leave at this things I used to do, focusing all my energy on one girl at a time. This is the pitfall that most, if not every single guy falls into. I fell into it a lot just because this is the typical cycle of a guy's dating history or dating experience. They find one girl very attractive. They use all their energy and all their time to chase after this one girl. Maybe go on a day or so. Ends up not working out. They get put in the friend zone. They're heartbroken. They sulk for like a week to a month, and then they find a new shiny object to chase after, and then they do this whole cycle over again. Doesn't work out. Sulk, depressed, sad for a week or a month or so, or maybe even longer. And then they find a new shiny object. At the end of the day, it's like there's gonna be more like there's new girls there every single day. But focusing all your energy on just one girl at a time, obviously it depends on lots of situations, but you tend to fall into this. I guess I don't know what the actual term for it would be. The state of one-itis, they call it, is you're just obsessed with this one girl. Especially, it's like like maybe you'd never even gone on a date with her, never even had a physical conversation with her, in-person conversation with her, and you're just obsessed over this girl's like, I can see myself marrying this girl. Granted, girls do this as well, but I think guys do this very much to an extreme. Like, trust me, I've been there, and I still sometimes do that. I just see this girl, maybe I go on a date with her. I'm definitely a lot better than I used to be. Go on a date or two with her, and then she's like, hey, I could see myself like dating this girl, and I just fast forward things in my mind way ahead, way too fast. And you just get obsessed with this girl, and then she shoots you down or whatever. And you're like, I can't live without this girl. And just like in reality, it's like you can, just because you're not focusing on any other women. Like if you had 15, and this is an exaggeration, but 15 eight to nines of girls that you're like contemplating or going out with or talking to, like if one of them drops off and she's like, hey, puts you in the friend zone type of thing, like you're not gonna stay in the friend zone. You'll be like, okay, like good luck. And because I have 14 other women that are just as good as you or maybe even better. So abundance, that's the key mindset you need to have. Do not focus all of your energy at one girl at a time, unless this is like your girlfriend or your like fiance or whatever. Then that's a different story. All right, I talked about many things I used to do in the past, which most of you guys who are simping are doing currently right now. You need to change that. And these are the things you need to change into. Things I've done since that have yielded me way better results. Like I said, night and day. Before I do that, let me take a swig of water. Night and day changes when I implemented this into my own life. Is first, number one, this is probably the most important for all y'all guys out there. Number one, okay, my stream is healthy again. All right, number one is put your purpose first. If you don't know what your purpose is, take a good, long, hard look. Focus on finding your purpose. Purpose may change here and there or might deviate, or I don't want to say the word deviate. It might, like, what's the word for it? Not bend, not deviate. It might be a little bit flexible here and there. I can't come up with the exact term. It's probably going to randomly pop into my head, but it's malleable. So you might think it's this one thing, might actually this, for example, you're, excuse me, I just ate, so a little bit for burp. So for example, maybe you think your initial like purpose in life is to become a doctor or whatever. And you're like, all right, I'm going to go to med school and do all this stuff. Like my purpose is to be a doctor. And you kind of start to go through med school and you're like, actually like what I'm actually passionate, like I am still going to go to be a doctor. I'd be like a neurosurgeon or whatever, like orthopedic surgeon, some kind of like crazy surgeon, make a lot of money, huge impact in the world, saving people's lives, working in the ER. But then you kind of go through med school and you're eventually like, hey, actually, I kind of want to do this maybe niche a little bit from like neurosurgery or orthopedic surgery or whatever. And then you finally get into more of a niche and you're like, I specifically want to help like kids in Europe or this specific type of procedure done on your in stomach, or I'm just making stuff up at this point, but you can see how like it changes over time, but it's generally kind of like around the same field. Like very much like myself. For example, I kind of started off, thought I wanted to do oil and gas. I mainly just did it for the money. It wasn't good fit for me. Great experience. I don't regret taking the classes I did and taking a little bit extra time. Honestly, that made me a little bit more mature. But eventually switching to business finance, understanding how personal finance works, how investing works. Love that. Anything about money, how to make money, how to allocate money, how to save money, how to invest money, all about that stuff. I love it. And that kind of pivoted me into also I like fitness and stuff. And then kind of at first I was like, all right, I want to be like a private equity guy. I want to buy and sell all these companies, which I still honestly want to do, but I don't want to do that as a career. I don't want to work for some Apollo or KKR or uh, Aries Wealth Management. I don't want to work for any of these big companies. I wanted to kind of do my own thing and kind of stemmed off of like, all right, being really into fitness and self improvement, started getting along that track and like, all right, here's this thing called dating. Like, I'm a single guy, I got a date. So gaining this experience and hey, this is what works. This is definitely what didn't work and what I used to do before. If I apply the stuff that does work that I've learned from other people and then myself, my own experiences, I get way better results. Just improving my life overall, not just in dating, but just all aspects. So that kind of led me into life of just like, all right, like I can kind of help guys with the finance part of it, the making of the money, the keeping the money, the investing of the money. Obviously, I'm still early in my career, so there is still much stuff I can learn. But um, I'm generally a pretty in shape, healthy guy. I have a pretty decent physique, I'd say. I'm not a bodybuilder or whatever. Not I'm natural. And then I have some pretty good experience in the dating world, like living in Utah. It's like Uber dating there. It's on steroids, dating on steroids. You go on so many dates, so many different experiences, and then also from the spiritual aspect, I think that's one part I saw like kind of like a little bit of a gap in the like the self improvement spaces. Everyone's focusing on the temporal stuff, which is definitely necessary, but there's a other half of it which is just as important, if not more important, is just the overall spiritual mindset and kind of putting everything holistically together. It's like, all right, like what actually is like the goal here? Is it just to get like, say I bagged X amount of women? Like no, like and made like millions and millions of dollars? No, not only that, but it's just like, hey, we have a greater purpose. We don't have just our individual purpose, which I like to say, but we have our eternal purpose, kind of everyone collectively, is to return back to our Heavenly Father who created us. We're his sons and daughters. So I kind of bring that aspect. I'm trying to bridge the gap between the two sides, and I actually watched a podcast was talking about like the Christian pill and stuff like that, and I agree with a lot of what the guys say. Honestly, I think there's not really two different ones; they just kind of coincide together. But I understand both sides to it. Anyway, that's kind of what I've kind of found my purpose is. And who knows, it might change over the 10 years. Obviously, I don't think it will change drastically, but it might be malleable a little bit here and there, and it might like fit into a little bit of a niche from there. But put your purpose first and find out your purpose. Put your purpose first. That's why I'm doing my day job, excelling in that, but I'm also putting a lot of time and effort into this because not only do I love doing it, but I think I can provide such a big impact later on, like down the road. And I don't know. I hope this could like be my career, like kind of what I want to do. And it's very attractive to a woman to see a guy kind of in his purpose, working on something he's very passionate about, and like being ambitious towards his goals. Like it's not easy doing a lot of that stuff, and it's very attractive to them. So put your purpose first, and if they, because this is like 10 out of 10, like every single girl wants a guy who's ambitious. No woman wants a guy who's just lazy and just like I work at my job and I kind of like. Don't get me wrong, I like my job, but for a lot majority of people out there, they don't like their jobs. They kind of hate their jobs, and it's just like they want to be with a guy who's just like, oh, I don't really like what I'm doing, but kind of have to because I don't like have anything else going for me in my life. And it's like they're not really building towards anything or trying to build anything bigger than themselves. They want a guy they can look up to, physically, spiritually, financially, all the above. They want a leader. Sorry, that was really long winded. I had to catch my breath for a second. But put your purpose first. Like I said, that's like by far, if you get anything from this live, put your purpose first, and that will work wonders for you. If you don't know what your purpose is, find your purpose, try out different stuff. Like Gary Vee and all these people say, it's like you're in your 20s, dude. Even if you're 25 and you think you're late to the game, like I thought I was, like I graduated when I was 26. You're not too late to the game. Like you're still ahead. It's better to start when you're 25 or 26 than when you're 35 or 36 or 46. And it's kind of too late for you. A lot more late for you than it is now. 20 years ahead, you know. So start now if you don't know what that purpose is. All right. So that's number one. If you don't get anything else out of it, get that. Put your purpose first. And when you do put your purpose first, like everything else kind of somewhat comes in line. Obviously, you can be a workaholic and just like spend no time in relationships or even wanting to nurture, build new relationships. That's a bad thing. But when you kind of have your priorities set and you're like, hey, I'm creating this kingdom for eventually a woman to reside in and to help me tend, you know? Uh, like a kingdom needs a queen, you know? But there's no queen if there's no kingdom. It's just kind of like you're just like kind of like in a village. So you got to build a kingdom for there to be a queen and for you to be a king. All right, next point. I'll get off my soapbox about that one. Like I said, express opinions if your opinions differ from hers, just because she'll respect you a lot more, and it honestly brings up pretty good conversation. For example, she brings up, "Hey, what do you think about? Let's just talk about food." She's like, "Hey, I really this kind of seafood. I really like catfish. I really like bass." And I'm just like, I actually never tried catfish or whatever. They'll just say I don't like it. I'm like, I don't really like that. Or just say I love sushi. Let's go out to a sushi place. And she's like, I hate fish. Like, I don't really like that. I'm like, really? You hate fish? Like, come on, sushi's like the best thing in the world. And I almost like trying to want to convince her, see if I can convince her. And then I typically I actually do this a lot when people are like, oh, I don't like sushi, I don't like fish. I'm like, trust me, I used to hate fish and stuff. Granted, it's kind of like by a miracle before I went on my mission in Japan. I actually like started liking fish and started liking sushi when I hated it before. So granted, it was a miracle, but what I would recommend to you if you're just like no go on raw fish, like just try a Vegas roll. That's like the it's like the gateway drug to sushi. Like Vegas roll is really good. There's like not really a lot of raw fish. I believe it's like raw salmon or raw tuna in it, like a little tiny bit. You have cream cheese and it's fried, and they put some eel sauce over it. Maybe they put some spicy mayo over it. It's really good. And probably like 99% of people that I tell just to try that and they try it, they're like, wow, this is really good. And I'm like, bingo, bing, 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 bing. And they'll start to a little bit slowly like sushi. So it's kind of like a challenge. It's very interesting. But like I said, it kind of stirs up and brings up playful banter and good conversation. If you have opinions that differ from her, and she'll respect you a lot more. And if you can even persuade her and convince her to kind of think something a little bit differently that she previously was like against or whatever, it's like honestly props to you. It's like, hey, this guy's like knows his stuff. Like he actually convinced me. All right, next, boundaries. I don't really need to talk more about this. I kind of nailed it in the no boundaries section of things I used to do, what Simps do. But set boundaries, and if boundaries are crossed, let them know. And like I said, I actually tweeted this morning, but it's like the ultimate superpower a guy has is the ability to walk away. And you kind of lay down the rules. Like you're not forcing any woman or anyone in the relationship to do anything. They always have their ability to leave. You always have your ability to leave as well. And she's like, hey, like I notice you're doing this. Like, I don't really date girls that do XYZ. They're like, and if they don't agree with that, they're like, okay, like, wish you the best of luck. Like, and kind of leave on somewhat good terms and just like kind of stick to your boundaries. Obviously, it's like, you can't have like insane boundaries, especially if you're not like a piece of work yourself. You're like, I require you not to go on any dates with any other guys. I would desire you need to have a zero body count. Like all these like almost to like delusional on the guy's side. Like, and if you're not up to par, like you're just like you don't really have much going for you. You don't have like a good job or good career. You don't have a purpose. You're not working on that purpose, and you're not in shape. And like you don't have the luxury of making those. I'd say at that point those are demands, not even boundaries, because it's not equal playing field. But boundaries, set boundaries. If they cross boundaries, kind of set things straight. or either that or end the relationship or allow them to walk away. It's like, hey, I don't really allow this, or like I don't like it when I don't date women that do XYZ. That's a really good way to put it. Shout out to Rich Cooper. All right, and rewarding good behavior. So if you notice, a lot of these are just basically doing the opposite of what you shouldn't do or what things I used to do. So reward good behavior. She like you kind of set boundaries and she respects your boundaries. Reward her in a certain way. She flakes on you, don't reward her. Don't ask her out again. If she does something that you don't like and you've clearly kind of set that as a boundary, then don't reward her. It's kind of as simple as that. And if she is doing nice things for you, then like definitely reciprocate it back. Like do nice things for her. Reward good behavior. All right. And these next couple ones, all right, stop putting them on a pedestal. Let's go into that one. Treat them like a normal person. Like, newsflash, women can tell if you're like super nervous and you're putting them on a pedestal. It's very clear. It's very obvious. Like as a guy, sometimes it's not very clear, not very obvious, but it's very clear and obvious to a woman. They're just naturally very good at picking up social cues. Guys, not so much. So treat them like a normal person. Like this kind of goes into if they have differing opinions, express those differing opinions and kind of give your reasoning behind that. Maybe see if you can convince them or persuade them. And if they do something you don't like, let them know. Like treat them like a normal person. Don't think they're like this like insanely like they're a god and you're like a peasant and you're like, oh, I must adhere to everything they're doing. Honestly, they're not going to respect you. And it's like they're not going to respect you, then they're not going to date you, let alone even go out with you. Stop putting them on a pedestal. Treat them like a normal person, and they'll actually really appreciate that as well. Because then they don't feel like they're obligated to do stuff for you just because you're treating them so nice and so well. Honestly, a lot of times, some women, not all women, but they'll actually see that and they'll take advantage of you. It's not a good place you want to be. That's where sugar daddies come into place, and you just get used as an ATM. Swipe, 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 swipe. All right. Uh, and the next couple things are just things that you can do to self improve your life to honestly just become more attractive to women in general, just because they like guys who kind of have something going on in their life. One is get fun hobbies or just get hobbies in general. Like if a girl's texting you, especially if it's like a girl who is like, hey, like what'd you do today or anything fun today? Like the other day, some girl asked me like what'd you do that was fun today? And I mentioned to her like, hey, yeah, I played some pickup basketball with my work friends like after work. It was pretty good. We had some good runs. I'm gonna get ready for my game tonight, type of thing. Or something that I was doing when I was kind of training for running. I would tell people like, hey, I'm kind of like training for like distance running and stuff. Like I'm kind of shooting for a half marathon. I'm working on. I ran like 20 miles this week. I still have to go on a 12-mile run later tonight, type of thing. Or uh, something I did or want to do when I kind of get into boxing after I'm done with this basketball league is like, hey, start going to boxing a couple times a week and just kind of get training for that. Learn how to do some self-defense stuff and just learn how to fight in general. I think it's a good thing that every guy should learn. With stuff like that, just like it's not only like interesting to the woman, it's like, hey, you got something going on in your life, but also it just kind of takes away idle time from you. Just because, trust me, I like, I have definitely have idle time sometimes, and it's not good. You guys being idle is not good. So fill it with stuff to do. I think that's either uh, physically demanding or improves yourself physically, intelligently. I don't even know if that's a word, but intellectually, that's the word for it. Spiritually, whatever. Like I honestly haven't. I've been bad at it just because I've kind of been doing other things. But going to institute, I last semester I was going to institute pretty much like every Wednesday. I was like learning different stuff. So just get hobbies, preferably fun hobbies, something that you can talk about. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like I ride motorcycles, or I do like long like endurance training, or I do something even more than. That's why I like to tell people like I don't just like going to the gym because I don't know. Sometimes nowadays, like even that can come off as like a kind of I wouldn't say red flag, but just like Oh, you're that kind of guy who like goes to the gym just to be buff and stuff. And it's no, oh, I focus on strength training and then I also do fitness like in general. So it's like there's like a purpose to what I'm doing to get stronger, strength training. So that I feel like my experience that comes off a lot better than just I like going to the gym. Because then if you just say I like going to the gym, you're just like automatically classified as a gym bro who's just trying to get like be like the next C bum or act like he's the next C bum. All right, become captivating. This goes along right along with the lines of just like get fun hobbies. Like surround yourself with cool people, do cool things, go on trips. Like obviously focus on your purpose, get your work done and stuff. That's why I'm a big fan of eventually just being like location independent. It's like wherever I go, I'm working, I'm on my laptop, I'm always doing stuff for this channel, for content wise, for other side things I'm doing, trading or whatever. Like I'm always doing stuff. And even with my current job, I can take it on the go. I can work from wherever, which is really nice. But become captivating. It's like it's cool though when you're like, hey, I was just like in Utah the past weekend, had some fun with the boys, worked on a couple things, got a couple stuff done. Like, and sometime in May, I was talking with my brother. He lives out in Colorado. There's going to be this Two Brothers like concert that they're doing out there in the Red Rock like amphitheater, which is sick. I've been there before. I've never been to a concert there, so like going to see them would be sick. But like them at the venue would be even sicker. Like I thought about going to California for their big booty like mix, the big booty 20 mix 24 or 24 mix that they reveal at Big Booty Land every single year. Shout out to Two Brothers and Big Booty Land, but it's literally in like next week, and I'm like, I just kind of like went on a trip. I gotta spend my money on other things like for my brand, Buff Asian stuff. But anyway, I digress. Be captivating, do fun stuff. Like it's okay to take a weekend, especially a long weekend, go do something, spend a little bit of money. Like you're only in your 20s like once. Doesn't mean blow all your money. Doesn't mean like necessarily stop working and just do nothing and veg out. But you can do fun stuff along the way. That's why I'm a big proponent of like living a fun life, a captivating life, like Rich Cooper says, and like just documenting along the way. It's like anywhere, and like my friends make fun of me all the time, but honestly, at this point, I don't care because it's like everything I'm doing is content. It's like it's my life. It's cool, and so I'm just like sharing it with everyone else. So become captivating. All right, last couple things. Become captivating. Adequate time with the boys is very important just because you need that masculine presence in your life and just doing masculine stuff. Testosterone. I can't even talking too long. Testosterone boosting activities like going to the gym, lifting together, driving fast cars, getting that adrenaline, that testosterone pumping, like watching sports, like cooking food, like do typical guy stuff. Go box each other, go shoot guns, like go do that fun stuff with your boys. Like I said, makes your life more captivating. I always love telling girls that I'm like, yeah, I just want a boys trip to whatever. It's like every single year we have a boys trip to go to Vegas. And we just have a fun time watching sports, maybe losing some money, preferably winning some money. Eating good food, seeing the sights, watching a couple shows, just living it up. Not doing any of the degenerate stuff per se, but just having a good time and just like shows that you have a social life and you interact with other guys that are competent and hopefully they're doing stuff that are making their own dent in the universe as well and they're captivating like yourself. Just makes your story much more interesting when you tell people. That's honestly what it is at the end of the day. It's like your life is your story. Like what do you want to make your story to be? You impact your own story. So is it gonna be a cool story? Is it gonna be a fun story? Or is it gonna be lame? Didn't really do anything. Played it safe. Didn't really take much risk. You know. All right. Last thing. Ended off on this. Got to catch. It's probably like third quarter now. Hopefully the Kings are up. I need them to be up. Spin plates. This goes back to the very last point I said and the things I used to do. This is what guys tend to do. They focus all their energy on one girl at a time. Doesn't work out very well. At the end of the day, it is a game of numbers. I hate to say this, but dating is like, especially for a guy, especially for a guy. So you have to make sure you have lots of options open. It's like think of a job opportunity. Are you just gonna like interview for one company? Like you don't have a job, maybe you just got laid off or whatever. Are you just gonna interview at one company and be like, oh, I hope, I pray that this one company is going to take me because I don't have any other options. If I don't get this job, I'm screwed. I'm going to just be depressed and I'm going to have to just take another 2 months to see what other opportunities there are. No, you're going to put out as many lines in the water as you can. Obviously, you don't want to spend all your time chasing women and trying to go on dates and stuff like that. Honestly, more plates, more dates. Derek, I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he was like, honestly, dating itself is a full time job. Like, I think he has a girlfriend now, and he's like, I would only have half the time dedicated to like what I need to get dedicated to if I didn't, like if I was single. Like if I was single, I'd use half the time chasing women, which is kind of true. It's like we just tend to like to hang out with women, and, be around very attractive people. But spin plates, so have many options at once. Like I say, I even though dating apps suck so bad and it's just like honestly you don't necessarily meet the highest quality of people, I see it at least as just like putting your line out there. It's a use it or lose it type of a thing. It's like you're not going to really increase your chances of meeting someone by not using a dating app. So like, might as well use it. Don't use it like for hours on end. Use it 10, 15 minutes a day. Like I just use that at night occasionally to just meet new people. And honestly, even if that doesn't like work out with that person, they typically have friends as well. And it's like, hey, maybe you could tap into just a new friend group in general. So spin plates. That way you don't get one-itis. You don't get delusionally obsessed with some girl that you went out on a date with once, or let alone like gone out with, let alone like had a physical one-on-one conversation with her in person. Like, don't do that. Don't be a weirdo like that. Trust me, I used to be like that, and most guys probably have at some point as well. But spin plates, diversify your options, diversifies your risk as well. And honestly, if you do get heartbroken, it happens. It's a risk. You're gonna have to put yourself out there. You're gonna get rejected at the end of the day. Use that to fuel yourself, put it back into your purpose, improve yourself better, and honestly, just be the guy at the end of the day that all the girls that kind of like had a chance with you, or maybe you dated them and things didn't work out. Like when you guys are like in your 30s or 40s, they look back and you're like, man, I missed out on that guy. Be that guy, because that's the ultimate revenge a guy can have. Girls have their revenge immediately after that by just finding another dude. A dude, their revenge takes a long time. And like I mean, I don't have anything against women or whatever or past relationships, but it's just endless fuel and endless motivation if you kind of harness that heartbreak and that disappointment into something productive. And honestly, it's something that impacts other people and helps other people. I think if it automatically goes to something positive, then great. And at the end of the day, like I said, I wish any past relationships and like the good luck and happiness and eternal love in their current relationships or whatever. But like eventually, it's going to be a fact. It's like I probably was the best option. It's just like it is what it is, you know. That's why you kind of constantly work on yourself. Like I said, no animosity or whatever. This is what it is. Make yourself better. Best version of yourself. All right, let's leave it at that. That was long winded. Prepared actually pretty extensively for this one. I really wanted to make this one a solid one. I've actually doing these past couple lives have just been like full of energy. Granted, I took some pre-workout before my basketball game, so I'm probably still kind of wired right now. I'm not going to go to sleep till probably like 1 or 2 a.m. But tomorrow's Friday. It's good. Work from home. All right, leave it at that. You know what it is. As with everything, trying to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. Go ahead, fall for more tips, fall for more lives. Stay pumped. Merch coming soon. Buff Asian. Check out. Look out for that. All right. Catch y'all later. My voice is shot. You know what time it is. Cue the outro.